you're a cultural historian, and in your book, The Once and Future Goddess, you credit Merlin Stone, and we lost Merlin Stone.
Just in the last couple of months.
Yeah. Her book, When God Was a Woman, has profoundly impacted a lot of men and women. Why do you think that is? What was significantly different about that?
She was the first one who said that, at least for the general public. And that book probably sold very well. Certainly, it was the first book that I knew of that said that. And there are several, two things that always, when I think of Merlin Stone, I was sorry that she died, but she hadn't been well for years. My mother, who was a lovely but very conventional bourgeois, a middle-class Jewish woman, who said, after my book came out, she said to my nephew, "Do you know that God was once a woman?"
From a cultural perspective,
yes.
What was different about when God was a woman? When
Oh,
culture
yeah, that's right.
centered around a female deity?
First of all, there was far more opportunity or far more sanction for feeling and for emotion and for connection to nature. And think of what we have now with this male God who is separate from his creation. Now, that's something we take for granted. But when I went to India and realized that the male gods were part of, that is, the male god who's a creator god, is part of his creation. The whole creation comes out of his body. So there he is. His name is Prajapati. Anyway, and so everything that there is was in his body to start out with. And so he's sacred, and so everything that comes out of him is sacred. And here we are with a God separate from his creation, and creation isn't sacred.
Right, and with what we're faced today environmentally,
oh, yes.
and just the global crisis that we have socially.
We don't consider people, humans, sacred, and the fact that we don't consider life sacred. And there's an argument going on now, at least in the New York Times, as to someone named Steven Pinker wrote a book in which he says violence is declining, and endless people have protested and said, I hadn't noticed that. Distinguished people. Robert J. Lifton, for instance, said his life work has been the Holocaust and Hiroshima. He says, I haven't noticed that it's declined. And how can it decline when we have such violent, first of all, the media is far more influential than anything we ever had before. So that this endless violence that everyone is exposed to all the time.
Right.
And the technology of the weapons, which is so much more powerful.
And kind of removes us from
Totally.
the action that we're actually doing.
Yeah, and when Robert Oppenheimer said, when they tested the first atomic weapon bomb, he said, now we have sinned. And we have. What he meant, I think, was that we now did something to nature that had never been done before. And therefore we have done something that, and not only that, it changes nature. I was once on a panel with Robert J. Lifton at the Harvard Law School in the 80s. It was when we were very much then into banning the bomb. And so they asked us, they linked me with him. It was an international thing. Even people came from the Soviet Union because he had written about the fact is that we can't image the destruction. So my contribution was imaging the destruction. I took pictures from the family album, like a friend in the hospital with her day-old baby nursing, or my children playing at the playground and things like that. And I matched them with pictures from Hiroshima. A woman nursing her baby with a black flake skin peeling off of her, and children in the playground where the children had been atomized, and there was nothing there but the black, imprint of where they had been. And it was so powerful that the people got up and walked out. They couldn't tolerate it. And people wanted to publish it, but the pictures I had came from the Navy and Army, so it was too much trouble to get permission for them, so I never did, but I still have that article.
Interesting. We can turn on the TV and
Yeah.
watch the latest flick about
Uh,
blowing each other up
Yeah.
or aliens coming down and destroying our planet, but to have real images of what
Yeah.
we're doing to each other
That's-
because
yes.
we're losing that sense of humanity is somehow forbidden to talk about it.
We didn't allow it on the media. When the caskets of the death came back from Iraq.
Right.
And I just read a book last week that was sent to me as a gift called The History of Women. It's an interesting, it's an easy read anyway, but it tells about women from 1914, from suffrage till today. And they're all, one's descended from the other. Anyway, but one of the women is trying to photograph what goes on in that place in Dover, Delaware, where the dead come. And she's arrested and goes to jail. But I mean, but it marks certain historically important things that women were doing
Right.
or are doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, in DC right now, we're trying to have an actual establishment that's for women's history.
Is this going to be part of the Women's Art Museum, or is it a separate museum?
It's something Meryl Streep's working on it, actually.
Oh,
as a
all right.
side. Yeah, we'll have to.
Let's find out about it,
Yeah.
because there was a Women's History Museum in San Francisco, but I don't know if it's the same one or not.
Yeah, I think this is definitely in DC.
Yeah.
And we only have a few moments left.
Okay.
If you had one message that you could give to our viewers about, culturally, humanistically, or just for women, what we can do to empower our lives.
Well, one is to trust our bodies, certainly, and trust our sexuality, and think of these things which are particularly as gifts and part of the life force, and and to put aside some of the negative messages that are part of the Christian message. That's part of our culture. We live in a Judeo-Christian world, in which women's bodies and women's sexuality are evil. And in order to heal, we really have to put that aside, and the deep implications of it, so that to think of things of joy and of the fact that this is part of the renewal of life is in the sense of our sexual, sensual selves.
So embrace our femininity.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I'm Elinor Gadon. It's been my pleasure and delight to be part of this program, and I want to honor the producers of this for their mission. I think that among the most important things that we can do in our culture and society today is to honor the feminine and to honor the female, and to really try to go beyond the deep divide that patriarchy has split between men and women, and to see us as equal partners in forging a world of dignity and social justice and peace.